Hello, welcome to another character camera controls stream. I am going to be creating some first person animations today, or first person character I should say, and using some animations that I've sourced. But first I'm going to put on some streamer friendly lo-fi because I want to listen to some music. Okay, there we go. Alright, just check everything's running. We're all good. Okay, we're live. So we're looking at first person today, so let's go to our 3Ps. I've got my level set up, first person. I'm going to go create another folder for core, create a new game mode. We'll create a character, we'll create a player controller, we'll create a game mode base. In fact, what we'll do is we won't create that controller because we already have a controller. GM underscore first person, BP character first person. Get this game mode up. Okay, so what we've got going on here, we've got this default point. We want our first person character, and we want our, I should rename this to BPPC basic or core, something like that, because all it does is add the IMC, which you might have seen in the last video, so we'll keep that there. Okay, save this. We moved a file, so I like to update redirectors when that happens. Let's just update redirectors. There we go. Okay, so the game mode uses PC core, it uses the first person character, that's everything there. In the world settings, we want to set this to the first person game mode, GM first person we called it. We hit play, can't do anything, as expected, because we haven't coded anything in this character. So similar to the last stream, we're going to create an inputs graph. So we have a nice inputs graph that we can use. I'm going to open up the third person character that we made in the last stream. I'm actually going to steal all of the things from the input graph, except for jumping and sprinting. I think those are important for now. I'm going to create a matching function for the camera direction, and we'll just change this to a pure const. Open that up, copy that logic. I like to keep all of my content to the right of the side there. We need a camera, so let's add a camera. We're going to need a camera. We're going to need a camera for a first person game. Got that in. Okay, so if we look at the viewport, it's a little bit low. Let's bring it up. We're also going to need some arms, so let's add a skeletal mesh. Cool, so we'll call this arms. I've imported some already, so got them here. They're doing something a bit funky, so let's do -90, and let's do animation here. We'll go animation asset, just go idle, first person idle. If I look at the top down, I mean his hand's pretty much off to the right, so we'll just straighten that up. Stick that back to the camera so that when we look up and down it moves with our character. And then we're going to want a weapon as well. This isn't how I would do a weapon in a real scenario. I would have a inventory and it would equip and unequip a weapon, but in this case it's just for demoing some of the stuff that I'm going to look at for first person camera. So I want some sort of weapon. Let's see what we've got. We've got this sniper rifle. Does not look like a sniper rifle. It's just preparing shaders maybe. See, to me that still looks like arms. Let's go in here, do skeletal mesh. Yeah, I want that. So we'll clear this and then we'll add it. There we go. Maybe it's a bug. If I attach it to the arms, and I can click here, do right hand, and then we can just orient it correctly. To be honest, these hands aren't great either. It's quite an old pack. I don't really have anything more recent to demo for first person animation on the arms, so we're just going to use this pack. See, it all moves together now, which is neat. Let's get it in the right place. I mean, that looks fine. And then straighten this up so it just looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so if I hit play now, yeah, I've got some stuff. I can actually already turn left and right, but I can't look up and down. So let's go to let's get rid of the third person character. For the first person character, I actually want to have the camera take the pawn control rotation. So now I'm able to look up and down, left and right. I don't really like that I can see the shadow of my character without an actual character behind the scenes. So what I'm going to do is just hide the shadows for these for now. Shadow. Don't cast shadow. Cool. One thing we'll notice with this is mainly what I wanted to demo today was, or is, if I walk into this wall, you'll see that the gun clips. And so this is one of the main things that you're going to have a problem with when you're making a first person demo. And so something in Unreal Engine 5.5 allows us to circumvent this in some scenarios. So enable first person point of view and first person scale, and then on your assets you can tag them as first person, and then you can also change the scale here to something like 0.5. So you'll notice the weapon still has a problem. If we remove the weapon from the conversation for now, just set this to like null scale, what we can do is see, okay, so the arms are working, so that's cool. If I turn that stuff off, you notice the arms go through. So it does do something. Let's move this wall to the other side as well. So I'm stood here, I walk into this wall, I turn into it, and my arms go straight through it. So what we want to do is re-enable, double check that, pretty cool little tick box. So that's a lot better. However, if I stick my gun back in there, walk up to the wall, my gun still gets the issue. So that's not cool. One of the things that we can do is we can play with the first person scale here. It applies it to all the primitives, such that they're small enough to not interact with the scene. And then we've got this field of view as well, for anything that's tagged first person. So what if we said 110 on here? Does that help? It's not helping. Okay, so it's like 70. So that also doesn't help. That is pretty cool that we can say, oh, you know, we want a really close-up view of the weapon here. But anyway, we'll go back to 90. If we actually go lower than 0.5, we'll end up with some clipping on the foreground. That still seems okay. It's quite a long weapon, so you've got a pretty heavy-handed. You'll see now that the hands are actually, and we've still got a little bit of clipping on the front end there. So it still does happen. There are limitations to it. One of the things we could do is move this back. That didn't help. It might be the case that it's like a foreground clip. yeah, so it is now limited by like a clipping plane on the camera, like a camera clipping plane. So what we could do is get it back to the front, make sure we still got that clipping plane issue, and then just check the clip plane on here. And of course I can't find it, so I'm going to quickly Google it on my other monitor. It's like the near clipping plane. Apparently it's in project settings, so let's go check that out. Let's see what things they have for the first person. Nothing. There's the near clip plane, so let's just set it to 2. Let's set it to 2.1. It's really not making any difference to that. Let's go. I had to use some extreme values. 50. Read the comment. The distance of the camera's near clipping plane. Right, wonderful. So we can't solve it like that. So there's another type of solution. In fact, I'll set that back to 10. Because that was the default. It didn't seem to make a difference. Let's come back in here. So firstly, we want this camera to max out at 0.5. I don't think we can go any lower than that. We still get this clipping on the weapon here. Now if we turn it off and actually, let's get to a position where we can see exactly how this is maybe working. Now, what I was going to try and do was say, if I stand on a specific point like this dot and aim at that corner with the weapon and lift it up. Okay, so it's not there, but maybe this dot and lift it up. Okay, so we start getting the clipping just on the tip there. So if instead I just do a scale of 1, which means like no change, stand here, turn 45 degrees. Yeah, so it happens like immediately. So it is helping a little. What I was hoping to do was just a very slight mix of 2 solutions. So what we do is we add a spring arm. This is a different solution here. What the spring arm's going to do is face in this direction. Stick my snap-in back on. Face in this direction, lift it up, and actually stick my arms to that spring arm, and of course they're all the way over there now. Okay, so we bring this right down to like 50 units. The idea is this can retract, and it will retract from a ball that's like here in this case. So what we can do is bring the arms back. On this spring arm we can do you might want to set up like a probe channel when you're doing this. We're just going to try this. Let's just jump in. It's probably going to react to itself. Yeah, so it's immediately reacting to itself. For simplicity for now, I'm just going to turn the collision off on these guys. So in a real scenario, you'd work with the channels in the project browser for the collision channels to work with this a little bit more effectively. I'm just going to make this custom and not collide with, oh, it already doesn't collide on visibility, so we'll set this spring arm to collide on the visibility channel. of course we're slightly further back than we were before, so let's just move it forward. Okay, so you see now how it's moving as we put the weapon into the wall, so that saves us a few things there. That's neat. These hands are fairly horrible. If we want to stop the animation while we move this, just click that button. So I think actually what would happen with this weapon is it will be somewhere like this. We're getting that clip again. But that's because the back of this, the butt of the weapon is literally right in there. Yeah. With an actual animator or some more time, I might go into Control Rig and actually edit this animation, but just generally the actual asset is quite messed up. Like, it's just not anatomically correct. I mean, look at all these issues that we have. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to tilt the gun, bring it down. Just stops bothering me. Cool. Okay, so we have a mix of the two solutions going on there. So that's cool. Now for gameplay, if we want to actually quickly set up some gameplay, let's just check how long the stream's been going. So we've got about 15 minutes. Let's actually set up a projectile. So in here I'm going to create a new blueprint class. It's just an actor, BP projectile. We're just going to stick a sphere on here. And that's going to be the root, because we're actually going to move this sphere. Okay, and one thing that we need to make sure is that this sphere doesn't interact with our weapons, which we've already ignored collision on. We also don't want it to immediately hit our character. Usually I would code the gameplay that I'm about to write. I would actually code this in a different way. I would create an input component or input context mapping for the character. I'd add the fire event to it, which is an input. I would have a weapon be a separate blueprint class that fires a projectile. But in the case of this quick prototype, we're just going to put left mouse input directly into this graph, and we're going to then call a function that I'm going to drop straight into the character, which hurts my soul a little bit, but that's prototyping. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do it right. It hurts me too much. I can't do it. Okay, so we're going to jump into here. We're going to create a input action IA fire. We're going to create a input mapping context IMC first person. Inside there we're going to add fire, and that's going to be on the left mouse button. We're going to go back to the character, we're going to add IA fire. So that's what's going to trigger our weapon to fire. We're also going to have a begin play. This won't work in all scenarios because you don't always have possession of your character on begin play in a replicated environment. There is some latency involved, but for this demo we'll do local subsystem, local enhanced. Okay, what's the character? So we'll just use player controller 0. This will work in a single player environment, won't work in a multiplayer environment. Enhanced local input, we will add a context. You can have multiple at the same time, as far as I remember. So we'll do that. And what we'll do is we'll just print here. Test that real quick. Click, click, click. Cool. We've got hello. Awesome. So when we fire, we've got these arms here. We will actually make a. We actually have a first person and in blueprint for this. which I'm just going to ignore and make my own. So we have the fire montage, which is actually what we want there. Got an idle. We're going to duplicate this ABP first person. Just going to delete everything that this has in it. What I'll do is I'll keep the slot there. I'm just going to delete everything else that's in here. Put this back where it should be. Okay. So we have a state. It's idle. Come in here, play idle. Compile that. Now I've got the idle animation. We will come back in and we will do state falling. This will be the first person jump loop. We could even do, let's do a conduit. No, it's not. I think this might be able to play an animation. No. Okay, so what we'll call this actually is like a jump. And in here we'll have jump stat. And then have another state falling. We'll have a new state landed. And we'll come back to here. Okay, and then over here we'll have begin play. Get on. Pass that to a character. As long as it's valid. Take this, promote this to a variable. As we update the animation, we'll check if that character is valid. We'll do grounded. Similar sort of stuff as in the last video. Okay, so it's in the air. So this idle to jump, if you were suddenly in the air, you can go into here. There's no condition for this, it's just true. So once this completes, actually, so it'll be evaluate time remaining. We can do fraction, or we can do relevant anim time. Get relevant anim time. So we're going from jump to falling. Time remaining ratio. Sure. Say if the time remaining is less than 0.1. We'll jump that in there. Okay, so that'll get us into a jump, and then it'll get us into falling. We'll start falling, and then we'll be landed as long as we're no longer in the air. And then this condition to finish is remaining relevant for the landed animation. Less than 0.1. Okay, so we should have animations for all of those. So it's like, is in air, get this little hop. We don't have a landed animation. So we'll have play jump end. Oops. Okay, so we're not in the air. We're in the air. Sure. Falling. Jump loop. It doesn't seem very active. There's not much going on in this animation to make it obvious that we're falling, like his arms aren't out sideways, but that's fine. Okay. So now that we have a basic animation set up, and it also has a slot set up for us for when we fire, we'll go back to our first person character arms, and instead of using an asset, we'll use a blueprint. We'll use AVP first person. To the viewport, hit play. I'm going to add a jump in, and I'm going to take it from the third person character that we made. So that montage for, well, it's not even a montage for landing, which is how I prefer to do it. It's actually how I did it in other projects, but I would prefer that landing to be a lot sooner. I think there's actually I feel like I remember there is an automated way to have this be a regular transition rule. Yeah, that automatic rule based on sequence. And this is an automatic rule based on sequence. I'll just get rid of these. Just testing some stuff out here. Yeah, I mean, automatic rule based on sequence, cool. Okay, so we do want to fire the gun, and we also want the gun to be a separate object. So what I'm going to do is cut this gun. Actually has some transforms, which is annoying, so I'll just copy the gun. We'll come in, we'll make a blueprint class, actor, EPOs for a weapon. You would do this also somewhat differently. So we have a weapon. Annoyingly is all offset, so we'll do that. Make sure it's actually X facing, which it is, and then of course it moved it. Why would it move it? Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so that's our weapon. Now I'm just going to double check that this weapon has a muzzle. Should have a muzzle. Skeleton. Character. Bones. Sockets. Bone names. All hierarchy. Okay, it doesn't actually seem to have... It's got all of these things, but it doesn't actually have a muzzle here. So we're just going to add socket. I'm going to call this muzzle. Move this right to the front and make it face forward. Should make more sense. And its Z should be up. Okay, so now we have a muzzle that's facing forward at the tip of the gun, which is where the bullet is going to originate from. We'll make a function inside this weapon called fire. Just one actor from a class. It's going to be that projectile that we made. You'd actually make these like abstract classes, and you would have the base code be in those classes, and then you would extend from them. So this weapon, for example, would be an abstract class in reality. You know, in an actual project, if this wasn't for a quick demo prototype. So here we're going to get a socket. We're going to get the whole socket transform. It's going to be the muzzle. Plug that in. D-days. Pardon me. Okay, so we have this, we ignore all the collisions, and so it's going to spawn something at the end of the gun when we call this function. The way that we call this function is we have a, in this case I'm just going to do as child actor. I hate child actors, and I'd never actually use a child actor in a real, again in a real project. I wouldn't use a child actor. I would be spawning this weapon on the server into your hands based on your inventory, probably based off of some kind of customization. Okay, so I'm just going to copy everything about this actor's transform. Annoys me that you can't do that easily. Okay, so get rid of that. Alright, where's that gone? Oh, that just didn't work at all. That's because it's not attached to the hand. There. Get rid of that old weapon. Okay, so now what we have in our hands is actually a blueprint. What we can do is get the child, get actor. Again, this is also unreliable because it's replicated, and so if you get this too soon as a child actor on a replicated game, it's not going to work. Child actor, we'll pass this to weapon, we'll fire the weapon, and we'll do this anytime that you press the button down. So there you go. So we have that. So the last thing to do is on the projectile, we'll actually add a projectile movement component. And that will move initially at its initial speed in its x direction, which is currently 0. So we'll just say 1000, and we will say it can bounce. So that'll be fun. The other thing is, obviously, it's massive, so we're going to make a transform. And we're going to break this transform. We'll use the location and the rotation, but the scale will be determined by projectile. So in this case, we're going to go 0.2. So from here, you can start doing some other fun things. So we're at 32 minutes now. I'm going to call it here. We've set up some basic first-person character. We've solved some issues that people commonly come across. We've got some basic animations in, and we can play a little game. I kind of want to make that projectile so much faster. Yeah, so you could start from here and create some sort of like Doom-like first-person shooter. Also, we should play the animation actually before I call this stream. So one last thing is on the arms, or actually no, just in general, we want to just play montage. Actually, it is going to be on the arms because the arms are not the root. So play montage. And we'll say fire. Cool. Again, subject to better animations, but it's pretty much something to start with, right? I would actually prefer to make a game that has no hands at all and it's very doomy. But that is a quick little setup for a 3Cs on a first-person core. So thanks, and see you in the next one.